Good morning, I'm Kenneth Moten.
And I'm Kaylee Hartung. Here are the 5 things to know this Friday. Number 1, the fire emergency in California.
Several large wildfires have been burning in California's Bay Area and near Los Angeles overnight. A broken piece of power company equipment could be to blame for starting a fire in Sonoma County that has burned at least 16,000 acres.
Fires across the state have forced tens of thousands of people to evacuate. Number 2, the new headline involving the Russia investigation, which ended with Robert Mueller's report earlier this year.
The Justice Department's review into the origins of that Russia probe is reportedly now a criminal investigation. Months after Attorney General William Barr said the FBI and other officials may have acted improperly.
It's essentially the Justice Department investigating itself. Democrats call it political revenge by Attorney General William Barr and the president.
On to number 3, there's word that the White House may send battle tanks to Syria despite President Trump's decision earlier this month to withdraw troops from the country.
Under a plan reportedly being considered by the Pentagon, the tanks and up to 500 U.S. troops would be sent to northeast Syria to protect oil fields from ISIS fighters. No decisions have been made, but the options have been presented to President Trump. Number 4, Florida's governor says he's ready to support allowing college athletes to get paid.
Ron DeSantis announced his backing for legislation that would allow Florida's more than 11,000 college athletes to make money from the use of their name, image, or likeness. That legislation will be considered next year.
It's similar to a new law in California, which goes into effect in 4 years and is fiercely opposed by the NCAA.
And finally, number 5, the U.S. nuclear weapons arsenal just received an upgrade. It's no longer running on floppy disk.
The Pentagon has quietly phased out the 8-inch floppies. The update began during the Obama administration and was recently completed.
A digital system is now in place. Officials point out the floppies did provide more security since they could not be hacked. Don't forget the ABC News app for all the trending stories. That app actually is not on a floppy. Happy Friday, everyone. You remember yesterday when we were like, Kaylee, we'll see you on Monday. It's been great having you this week.
Surprise!
She's here, and we're glad to have you also on this Friday. Help us close out the week. The big story, let's get right to it, and it's in Washington. The Russia investigation. There's word that Attorney General William Barr has now launched a criminal investigation into how the Russia probe got started. You'll recall the Russia probe looking into interference in the 2016 election ended with Special Counsel Robert Mueller's report. This new development means the Justice Department is now essentially investigating itself. Democrats are blasting the move, calling this an attempt by President Trump to get political revenge. ABC's Inez de la Cotara has the new details. Inez, good morning.
Good morning, Kenneth and Kaylee. Well, President Trump repeatedly called the Russia probe illegal, but already his critics are saying that the effort to turn the focus back to Russia is meant to distract from the impeachment inquiry.
This morning, the prosecutor reviewing how Robert Mueller's Russia probe came about has been granted the authority to launch a criminal investigation, which means he'll have the power to issue subpoenas and seek a grand jury. Attorney General William Barr had previously said the FBI and other officials may have acted improperly. The president's critics blasting the move. Congressman Jerry Nadler and Adam Schiff writing, if the Department of Justice may be used as a tool of political retribution or to help the president with a political narrative for the next election, the rule of law will suffer new and irreparable damage. The news comes as House Democrats' impeachment inquiry ramps up, with a key witness this week testifying that there was a quid pro quo when President Trump asked the leader of Ukraine to investigate Joe Biden and his son, Hunter. And the president praising that group of Republican House members who stormed a closed-door impeachment hearing in protest.
We're going to go and see if we can get inside.
Republicans have been blasting the impeachment process as unfair. They want the hearings made public. Senator Lindsey Graham now introducing a Senate resolution to condemn the House for pursuing a, quote, closed-door, illegitimate impeachment inquiry.
So what do you say to the argument that 47 of your Republican House colleagues who serve on these committees, they have the right to be in there?
I would say that if we pulled this stunt, you'd be eating us alive. 47 Republican House members feel like it's not working for them.
And closed-door hearings were held as part of the Nixon and Clinton impeachment proceedings. Democrats say they will make those hearings public by mid-November. Kenneth and Kaylee.
All right, Inez. Thank you.
President Trump is taking his gripe with the media to a new level. The White House has canceled its subscriptions to the New York Times and the Washington Post. Now the administration is planning to instruct all federal agencies to do the same. The White House said the move would save taxpayers hundreds of thousands of dollars.
And it's one of the most popular social media apps, but now lawmakers in Washington are voicing concerns about TikTok.
The app, which is owned by a Chinese company, has sparked a bipartisan call for a security review. Senators Chuck Schumer and Tom Cotton, they want intelligence officials to determine if the app's data collection poses a national security risk. They're also worried China's government may censor the content. TikTok says it is independent from Beijing. Vice President Mike Pence took a swipe at Nike and the NBA during a speech meant to criticize China's trade and human rights record. Pence criticized the company for removing Houston Rockets merchandise from stores in China after the team's general manager tweeted his support for pro-democracy protesters in Hong Kong. Pence also said the league should have stood up for that Rockets executive.
In siding with the Chinese Communist Party and silencing free speech, the NBA is acting like a wholly owned subsidiary of that authoritarian regime.
The speech came as the U.S. and China are trying to reach a new trade deal. Pence also criticized past administrations for tolerating China's trade practices and the repression of its citizens.
Good news here. Former President Jimmy Carter is out of the hospital after fracturing his pelvis during a fall. A spokesperson says Carter's looking forward to recuperating at his home in Plains, Georgia. This was the second fall in less than a month and his third since May. At 95 years old, Carter is the oldest living former president.
Now to the fire danger in Southern California. Tens of thousands of people were forced to evacuate overnight as the fast-moving flames burn closer to neighborhoods.
Among the fires burning right now, the two largest are the so-called Tick Fire in Southern California and the Kincaid Fire up in Sonoma County. Overnight, both were less than 10% contained.
And now we're learning that a problem with the power company's equipment could be to blame for one of the first, despite planned power outages in the area. Overnight, wildfire after wildfire raging in California. At least 40,000 people have been ordered to evacuate near Los Angeles as 30-mile-per-hour winds drive fast-moving fires.
Basically, force these people out of their homes.
The biggest of those blazes, the so-called Tick Fire, spreading across hundreds of acres in just minutes. These horses in Santa Clarita frantically running in their enclosure as houses around them catch fire.
This might actually be the one instance in which having a garden hose, look at that, was able to put out the palm tree.
This family quickly packed their car to escape the flames, leaving behind their home and animals. ABC's Matt Gutman was there.
You want me to open the gate so the animals can go out?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't have a choice. I don't want to see the fire coming close.
It's really coming here.
Firefighters had to cut their way into this nearby daycare after an ember landed on the roof, igniting the building. Meanwhile, in Northern California, the so-called Kincaid Fire has burned at least 16,000 acres in Sonoma County's wine country.
Trees are going up like kindling here. The embers coming in every direction. No matter where you are, you have to be wary of the wind because it can change at any second.
Firefighters had to drive through tunnels of flames, trying to get the upper hand while facing winds gusting above 75 miles per hour.
We just can't keep ahead of it. So we're almost just chasing it and trying to get ahead of it constantly throughout this whole night.
Authorities say at least 49 buildings have been destroyed and thousands of people have been ordered to evacuate.
They were really, get out now. Grab your keys and your dogs and go.
And now a broken piece of equipment from the utility company could be to blame for the Kincaid Fire, despite widespread preemptive blackouts. PG&E says a transmission tower near the start of the fire may have malfunctioned and stayed energized during a planned blackout. It's not clear whether that malfunction sparked the fire. And more planned power outages are expected in Northern California this weekend because of the heavy winds expected.
The Houston Astros have fired an assistant general manager who shouted inappropriate comments at 3 female reporters.
The move came 3 days after the team claimed a report about the incident was fake. Brandon Topman directed profanity at the women while yelling support for an Astro who faced domestic violence charges last year. It happened Saturday as the team celebrated winning the American League pennant. The club apologized for its initial reaction.
Now to a confrontation involving disgraced Hollywood producer Harvey Weinstein, who's facing sexual assault charges. He showed up at a bar in New York to attend an event for young actors, and 2 women ripped into him, calling him a monster.
Nobody's really gonna say anything. I'm gonna stand 4 feet from a rapist, and nobody's gonna say anything.
The women were kicked out of the bar. People in the crowd say Weinstein went relatively unnoticed until comic Kelly Bachman pointed him out.
Yeah, it's our job to name the elephant in the room. Do we know what that is?
To me, it felt like this is a monster from your nightmares. I've literally had nightmares about Harvey Weinstein the same way that I have nightmares about It by Stephen King or Freddy Krueger.
Weinstein has kept a low profile since accusations of sexual assaults against him emerged in 2017. He pled not guilty and denies any allegations of non-consensual sex. A representative for Weinstein tells The Hollywood Reporter this scene was uncalled for, downright rude, and an example of how due process today is being squashed by the public trying to take it away in the courtroom, too.
And a bizarre story out of Arkansas. A hunter dies after the deer he shot got back up and attacked him. Authorities say 66-year-old Thomas Alexander was checking on his kill when he discovered the animal was still alive. Alexander called his family for help after the attack. They notified emergency responders. He died at the hospital. Wildlife authorities are still searching for that deer. Well, coming up, the young football player going viral for his pep talk.
And why we want him on our team.
Yes, we do.
After this. We turn now to a dramatic rescue in Florida and the man being called the hero kayaker.
He went out kayaking yesterday morning and could not believe what he found in the water. This morning, a miracle rescue in Florida. Rob Goodman was launching his kayak at a park in Vence when he spotted something in the water.
I was probably about right here when I noticed the car because it was just becoming daylight.
Goodman says he could only see part of a car's roof. He flagged down a paddleboarder, and that's when they realized someone was inside.
He came over and we got right about here when her hand came out the window.
The two men just so happened to be a former firefighter and a former reserve deputy. They called for help, but their instincts took them into the water to get her out.
And I got underneath her arms and pulled her up and just kind of like set her in my lap, kind of, and just held on to her.
This surveillance video shows the 81-year-old's car going into the water around 9:30 the night before. She had been in the water for nearly 10 hours with only inches of breathing room, and the tide was rising.
And the car actually was starting to move when our units got there. It was starting to float away.
Fire crews say the men are heroes.
It's lucky that she was found when she was found, because otherwise it could have been much worse.
Goodman says he's thankful the woman will be okay and that he was in the right place at the right time.
There must have been a reason because there was nobody else here and it was just him and I, so thank the Lord that she's good.
And that woman was taken to the hospital. Again, she is expected to be okay.
Moving on now to Spain, where the body of dictator Francisco Franco has been exhumed and moved from the Valley of the Fallen mausoleum into a small family crypt, capping off a national debate over what may be the darkest period in Spanish history. Let's go across the pond to our newest foreign correspondent and one of my personal faves, Maggie Rulli in the London Bureau for more. Good morning, Maggie.
Morning. You know, selfishly, before we get to the stories, Kaylee, I was so excited I got to work with you today. I've been watching you guys all week. Kaylee, Kenneth, love it. The Halloween prank was one of my favorite that I have ever seen.
Really?
And I just have to say, Kenneth, you are mean. You are mean, Kenneth.
Rulli, you know that firsthand, right? You know how mean I am firsthand.
No, it's been awesome to watch you guys. Your pumpkins were amazing.
Thank you.
Some more amazing than others.
That is true.
Maggie, you're the best. Appreciate it so much. I'm so glad you're here with us. Can you tell us, why was this body moved after all this time?
Well, it's interesting. There's so much happening over here. What I find most interesting about this story, Kaylee, it reminds me a lot of some of the issues we're dealing with in the States as well. You know, there are so many often protests about whether or not we should remove monuments to our own civil war, and that's kind of what's happening here in Spain. This Dictator Franco, was one of the darkest times in Spanish history. He reigned for about 40 years. It was known as a time of terror, of torture. During the Civil War, a 3-year period that got him into power, there are reports that around 500,000 Spaniards others were killed. So again, a very dark time. And he was buried in this huge monument. And many people saw this as a very disrespectful thing to all of the victims during his reign. So there's been a movement for a while to have his body moved. He was buried somewhere else instead of sort of holding him in this high regard. Yet with everything, there is a debate, there is a protest. Many people in the right-wing party in Spain almost became to see his monument as a place where they could come and pay their respects to this leader. So even when his body was moved, we did see some protesters who were holding up signs of this dictator, praising him. He did have some family members there, about a little over 20 family members that came to sort of pay their respects as he was laid to his new resting spot. But for the most part, most people there thought this was the appropriate move. I think it's something like 80% of the Socialist Party in the country wanted this move to happen. But again, I think it's really interesting to tie into some of the stuff we're dealing with in the States as well, and how we kind of have our own issues with whether or not to keep up these Civil War monuments. So interesting to see these things happening sort of around the world. And guys, I also want to flag, not sure if you had a chance to check it out yet, but our good friend and colleague James Longman had a really powerful story last night on Nightline. We got to see some of it. He went to Chechnya, and this was an amazing investigative piece. There have been reports for quite some time now about the leadership there and the government there rounding up, arresting people of the LGBTQ community, horrible reports of torture, and some of the things he found are incredible. They are heartbreaking. They are very raw. And I want us all to watch this one moment together, because this moment, James, again, our friend and colleague, he's openly gay. He just wrote another amazing piece for ABC about for National Coming Out Day. And so in this piece, he comes out to the government there, and I want us all to watch it together.
I've reported around the world as an openly gay man, but in Chechnya, I kept it to myself so far.
I might tell him, guys. Isn't it giving me... So I have a question for you. What if I told you that I was gay? Huh? What if I told you that I was gay?
It's a very powerful moment, and very brave of James to do that as well. I encourage everyone to go watch all of it on our website. Have you guys had a chance to check it out yet?
I did see that Nightline piece. It gave me chills, Maggie, when I saw it. I talked to James about this when he was here in New York just a couple weeks ago or so. And he told me about that moment. I know his heart was racing at that moment. And as you mentioned, very brave. I actually don't think there was a word to describe how brave he was at that moment. But you said something earlier, Kaylee, this morning when we were talking about this piece, about what we go through as journalists when it comes to doing these types of pieces.
Well, and there's this concept of objectivity that we all want to have, but at the end of the day, we're all human. We all have a pulse. And so we all, as journalists, have to live with our own truths and tell every story that we come to through that lens. We can't do it any other way.
Yes.
And that's exactly what James did here in such a brave and remarkable way.
Yes, I just say bravo to our colleague there. We're extremely proud of him and his reporting, shedding light on what's happening there in that country. Should we move on, Maggie, to Australia, where mountain climbers have converged on this very popular rock, Uluru, also known as Ayers Rock. I know there was a name change because of the disputes, really, over this landmark. But the famous rock there in Northern Territories, outback, before it's set to ban climbing, it's setting off a big debate in that country. We know Uluru is considered sacred to Indigenous Australians. So what are they saying?
Well, yeah, this ban's going into effect today. It's been debated for a while. It's kind of this iconic landmark in Australia. Many people just refer to it as the Rock. But for the Aboriginal community, for the Indigenous community, it's very important. It's a sacred monument. They gained control of the national park about 34 years ago. And ever since then, there's been this huge push to no longer let people climb it. They view it as extremely disrespectful. In fact, many people in the Indigenous community there view it as saying, what if we went to an Australian war memorial hospital and started scampering all over the graves. That's sort of the mindset that they have about this place. So there's been signs up for a while encouraging tourists not to climb the rock. And they do point out that for the most part, many people are respectful. They say now about 4 out of every 5 visitors to this sacred place respect those signs. They don't climb the rock, but obviously there are still many climbers around the world that view this as sort of this iconic thing to climb, this thing to conquer. And even the past couple weeks, the past couple months, there's been this insane rush. We saw a line of climbers lining up to get to the top of the rock. In fact, there were so many they couldn't actually camp outside of the rock. They had to camp all along the road leading up to it. And what really struck me is that the local community there, in their local language, refers to these tourists as ants. So you can kind of see they almost look like tiny insects scrambling to the top. And there's definitely bad blood sometimes between both of these. But it's another interesting twist here that they also view the tourists as a way to bring money to a much needed area. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. They still want people to come visit. They just want them to be respectful. There now is a fine starting today if anyone tries to climb the rock. It's over $4,000 US. So a pretty steep fine as well. But it's interesting. And again, this is playing out all over Australia with many of these sacred places, and we see it in the States with sacred places for our own Indigenous communities. So interesting to see how this one played out, guys.
Yeah, definitely. Well, you're sacred to me, Maggie Rulli.
Absolutely. Wait, Maggie, I have a question for you. Since you hopped the pond and moved to London, how many passport stamps have you gotten? Because you have literally been spanning the globe doing so much great work for us.
You are so sweet. There's been a few. Excited to get even more. I know, Kenneth, last time we chatted, it was from the cricket pitch. Have you learned anything else about cricket?
No, I haven't.
I'm sure you're a big fan now.
I was such a big fan. I was waiting. You know what? You've been to so many places. I'm just waiting for you to pop up on camera eating crickets at this point. For Nightline.
Challenge accepted, Kamo. Challenge accepted.
Yeah, you even came back to the States and for a moment and didn't even say hello to us.
Oh, sorry, I blew your... I was just telling him how excited and happy I was that I got to see you in person. And
yeah, so
I didn't realize
she's all over the globe.
Sorry, Kenneth. I only went to my friends.
Whoa, all right, Maggie Rulli.
Just kidding. You know I've called you my best friend for years, Kenneth.
She has. All right, Maggie Rulli, we appreciate you. Thank you so much. Good to see you. Have a great weekend.
Bye, guys. Good to see you. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Let's check our notifications now.
Have passion. Be determined.
More of this kid.
Be a maverick. And when we get on that field, let's show the Cisco Lobos how to be a maverick.
Yeah. We are starting with that high energy pep talk from a pint-sized team captain.
10-year-old Lane Bridges from Rising Star, Texas is quickly turning into a rising star himself. That's the cornerback for the Mavericks youth football team. He gave his team some very spirited motivation, and afterwards, our own David Muir caught up with him, and what do you know? Lane gave David his own personal pep talk. Listen to this.
David, people are counting on you. They're counting on you to be the best newsman you can be. No pressure, but you can do it because I know you can. So go show the American people the best news anchor they've ever seen in their entire life. Go get them.
Yeah, go get him, David. By the way, little Lane there, his team won 6-0 that day.
Of course they did. After a pep talk like that.
I mean, Kaylee, if you're going to be around here, pep it up and pep me up.
We need Lane here, right here on our team to get that spirited motivation every day.
He's amazing. Next is often said that necessity is the mother of invention.
And one clever invention is now helping a mother and her son go viral. 7-year-old João Vicente of Brazil has cerebral palsy. Can't stand on his own. So this adaptive skateboard is helping him live out his dream with a little help from his mom.
Yep. Lau Patron tells Good Morning America that her son always wanted to skateboard and the disease never changed that. That adaptive skateboard was created by a father so his daughter could ride with him. It's since been adopted by the organization Skate Anima, which is how João found and came to use it. That's so impressive there.
Yeah.
And a 24-year-old became a multi-billionaire overnight.
What? Mm-hmm. Wharton Business School grad Eric Say was gifted 1/5, just 1/5 of his family's pharmaceutical company, and that stake is worth $3.8 billion. It also makes him one of the world's richest people, vaulting him past the likes of President Trump and filmmaker Steven Spielberg.
And of course, we're just showing him pictures with many women and a dolphin, just to show the amazing life he's going to have now. So congrats to him.
Absolutely.
Hope he does something amazing with it.
And getting that degree from Wharton. I mean, this wasn't like winning the lottery out of nowhere.
No.
He has been preparing for this moment, you would have to think, his whole life. So good luck to him. Good luck to him.
Well, coming up, we're going to get you an update on that chicken sandwich wars of 2019.
How Popeyes is getting ready to deal with the demand after this.
Here's what to watch out for today. The funeral for Congressman Elijah Cummings will take place at New Psalmist Baptist Church in Baltimore. Former Presidents Barack Obama and Bill Clinton will speak, along with former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and Baltimore native Speaker Nancy Pelosi. You can watch the ceremony right here on ABC News Live at 10 a.m. Eastern.
President Trump will travel to Columbia, South Carolina. Oh, Kenneth, that's your neck of the woods. To speak at the Second Step Presidential Justice Forum before spending the weekend at Camp David.
United Auto Workers across the nation are voting on a new 4-year deal with General Motors, which could finally put an end to the 5-week strike.
And Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg, fresh off testimony on Capitol Hill, is reportedly holding a fireside chat with News Corp CEO Robert Johnson as Facebook plans to unveil a News tab feature on the platform.
Plus, don't forget to tune into the debrief for an update on all our top stories in the briefing room for a breakdown of the latest headlines in politics. Finally, on this Friday for It's Morning America, Popeyes is staffing up for the return of its massively popular fried chicken sandwich. The company is now hiring an additional 400 workers to increase its sandwich making staff. Stores sold out within 2 weeks after the sandwiches first went on sale in August. I'm sure Kaylee remembers. Kaylee, you'd be very happy to find out that they're due back on the menu early next month.
Well, thank goodness, because I still haven't had one, and I don't believe you have either.
I have not. But that is our question of the day, though, is would you apply for a job at Popeyes just to get your hands on that chicken sandwich?
Right, because you would think, if you're working there, you got a leg up on the competition like us.
They probably save them for the customer, so employees are not allowed to have them.
Really?
No, I'm
Come
sure
on.
that's not, no.
Come on, Popeyes. Give the people what they want.
But we do need one of those chicken sandwiches.
Yeah, we do.
I know people were going to restaurant after restaurant trying to find them. Some people did, some people did not. Yeah. Some people said, how were they able to not have enough supply?
Right? Isn't that the truth?
So they had to grow the chickens. Apparently they've done that, and now they're ready. They are plucked, they are floured, breaded, whatever, ready to go.
Fun fact, from, let's see, the age of 7 to 17, I had Popeyes chicken every Sunday after church at my grandparents'
Well, you
house.
are from Louisiana, and it is Louisiana's kitchen.
Yeah, it is.
They're playing that music, which means they want us to shut up. We hope you guys have a great weekend. It's great to have Kaylee here all week, and we will see her on Monday, I think.
You will.
Who knows, actually? We'll see you. Have a good one.